Ren, we have the privilege of speaking to many experts every month here at Equity Mates, of course, all of which do go eventually out onto the show, but we get a bit of a front run of what's to come. And from that, we get insight into many different ideas that we note down on our watch list. So this segment, we're going to run through stocks that are on our watch list from March, because of all the content that we've done here at Equity Mates or read ourselves over the last month. So let's get into it.
So I think there's 7 stocks that we've got here between us. I want to start in London, underappreciated stock market, and this company I reckon has been underappreciated. Games Workshop.
Yeah.
You heard of it?
I have.
Yeah. Were you a Warhammer? Were you a Warhammer guy growing up?
I wasn't. I kind of started to. I thought about it because I had a couple of mates who were into it, but then I was like, not for me.
For people who are unfamiliar, it's like a fantasy world where you buy figurines and you paint them, and then you can battle them. But we're not here to talk about the game. We're here to talk about the share price performance, because it's been like London's best stock performer.
Yeah.
The past 10 years. 40% compound annual growth rate.
Incredible.
Yeah. James Abella from Fidelity mentioned it when we chatted to him, and I had a look at its financials just because I wanted to get a sense of it. So it's got a 40% EBIT margin. It's got a return on equity of 66%, and it trades at a 26 times price to earnings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even with that past 10 years growth rate.
Second company that came across our desk, ran James Hardie, global building materials company, put in a bid for AZEK. Shareholders were unhappy though.
Yeah.
So much so that the company was down 15% on the day of the announcement, down 40% in the past year.
Yeah, and I think the reason that shareholders were pretty unhappy was James Hardie is seen as like a high quality, it's got good return on equity, and it wasn't trading at too expensive a multiple, whereas AZEK was seen as a lower quality business and trading on a higher multiple. So that's why investors were particularly unhappy.
The thing is, though, it's not a shitty company.
Yeah. So 3-year compound annual growth rate for revenue of 11%, for earnings per share of 16%, return on equity north of 20%, trading 22% in the past year, trading at 23 times earnings. For me, James Hardie is always a company that just had the stink of asbestos on it.
Yes,
like it's never one that I considered.
Yes.
But then, when we did that episode on your superannuation and I saw it in your portfolio,
Stink of asbestos,
and then obviously it was in the news, and just reading about the fundies who are in it, it's like, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
The stink of asbestos.
Well, I mean, like that's fair.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. That's exactly what that was years ago.
Well, is it? But it's still being litigated.
I think so.
Isn't it? I haven't done my research on that, but.
Anyway, let's keep going. Not so much as a company, but we were speaking to Chris Judd. He's a macro investor, and he was talking about the current market for tin, the commodity, undergoing at the moment some pretty significant global supply pressures. So there's conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I didn't know provides 6% of the global supply of tin, and also mining operations over in Myanmar, another global supplier of tin, are significantly impacted. So he's expecting some price movement on the commodity for tin.
Hey, you think 6% of the global tin market coming out of the DRC is exciting? You should see how much of the global cobalt market it owns.
What? How much?
Like 70%.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. What else, Ren? What else is on the list?
So this one didn't come up in a interview, but I was just reading about this company. Never heard of it before. Have you heard of Watsco?
No.
So it's a US company. It's like a air conditioning and
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
Aircon, heating, and refrigeration.
Yeah, it's a bit of a conglomerate now. But the reason I want to talk about it, it has got what I think is the toughest employee share program ever. So you know how in Australia, people who work at Macquarie Bank talk about the golden handcuffs of 10-year vesting?
Yeah.
And so, if they leave within the 10 years, they forfeit some of those shares. Yeah. How's this? Watsco have a vesting cliff at 62 years old. So it's not about
time. It's not even time. It's just age.
It's age, yeah.
That's what?
And if you work beyond 62, I think they can even extend it. And so basically the cliff means your shares don't vest over time. They vest, in this case, at once at 62 years old. So if you leave before 62 years old, you forfeit 100% of your shares.
That's ridiculous.
So they are basically saying, like, we want you to be an
Lifer.
employee for life.
Yeah.
We want you to really be committed long term to this company. And so then I was like, that's interesting.
Is it worth it?
How is that translated to share price performance?
Yeah.
19% compound annual growth rate over the past 35 years.
Okay. Well, fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, yeah. Plenty of other we were speaking about, anyway, don't worry about that.
Think about the employee that started their career in their mid-20s at Watsco 35 years ago and have worked for 35 years. And so they've got paid their salary. They've been collecting these shares and the shares have been growing at a 19% compound annual growth rate. No way you're leaving that company.
No. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Look, we've said it before, but Google continues to be an obvious play at the moment. I think as the NASDAQ continues to drop, so does the PE.
Well, I think the thing that is interesting for us is it's trading at the same price it traded at in 2021.
Yeah.
But if you look under the hood, its Google Cloud business has gone from 17 billion revenue to 43 billion revenue in those, three and a bit years. Their subscription revenue went from 27 billion to 40 billion. YouTube revenue went from 27 billion to 36 billion.
Yeah.
Like these are decent growth percentages in 3 years. YouTube revenue grew 50% 33% in 3 years.
Yeah. Why is the market not into it?
Self-driving cars, I don't know.
That's also another positive.
No, I genuinely think it's AI. You had this theory at one point
that's
that,
true.
that Google search will lose some of its dominance with AI.
I know. I'm a case study of that. I rarely Google on my laptop or desktop anymore. Really? Yeah, rarely. The only
I'm still big
maps,
Googler.
big maps user, obviously. But for me, Perplexity now trumps Google.
Okay.
For things like restaurants and stuff, still Google. But I also find on my phone still a Googler because I find the AI experience on the phone not quite as good as, even though they all have apps now, I'm still native Google. But yeah, I'm a case and study. But anyway.
There you go.
Still in the portfolio.
So is it the most obvious play then, given that their dominant business where they have 90% market share is under
pressure?
Threat?
Yeah. Well, I think also they've been criticized for not keeping up with the AI development as much. I mean, Gemini is their product and it's actually rated as one of the best LLMs at the moment.
Yeah, I don't use it that much.
Yeah, me either.
Except on Google search, obviously.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing though. All of these AI models, if they start to eat into search, will they eat into search ad revenue?
Yeah.
Because no advertiser can advertise. Like even if they lose search volume or lose search market share, will they lose market share of that advertising revenue that comes alongside?
Yeah. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, if we're speaking about obvious plays that we've spoken about on this podcast before, I wanted to touch on Eli Lilly.
Yeah.
Because so they have Lilly Direct, I think only in the US, but it's to really facilitate telehealth services for their obesity and diabetes drugs, which is GLP-1s, Zepbound and Mounjaro. Is it Zepbound and Mounjaro for Eli Lilly? Yeah. But they are opening up Lilly Direct for their Alzheimer's drug. God, I'm going to get this wrong. Kisunla?
Kisunla.
Yeah, they don't make it easy, do they? And so that's the brand name for donanemab. Again,
yes,
probably got that wrong.
Could have made it easier.
But in clinical trials a couple of years ago, it showed clinical decline by 35% compared to the placebo and resulted in 40% less decline in ability to perform activities of daily living in Alzheimer's patients. So it obviously doesn't stop Alzheimer's, but it slows the decline. It's now being added to their telehealth services as well.
Nice.
Just like Eli Lilly, it's a
leader.
One.
It's a leader. Yeah. Yes. Now you wanted to close out with one, a gun maker.
Yeah, really. Beretta. Yeah. And this actually is a good segue to our third segment today, which we're going to talk about defense stocks. But Beretta is seen as potentially one of the biggest winners from this like revitalization of European military spending. But I was reading this Forbes profile on the company. 499 years old.
Yeah.
It's up to its 15th generation of family CEOs.
Wow.
15th generation.
Wow.
God, if you get born into that
That's
family,
amazing. You're sorted.
yeah. Well, also, like, you can't...
Huge expectation.
Yeah, your life is laid out there. But, you know, it was talking about how their how the business of gun making works and some of the things they're trying to do, which I found quite interesting. It's very much you know how people talk about the printer being the perfect business? You sell the printer at a low margin and then you just lock people into having to buy ink cartridges over and over again.
Yeah.
Beretta was saying the same thing with ammunition. They're like really trying to push into ammunition to try and do the same thing. But the reason I found it interesting was Beretta is a 499-year-old company and it's worth about $2.5 billion US.
What?
And for me, I was thinking about the cybersecurity company that Google bought, Wiz. In 5 years from founding, it got sold for $32 billion. 5 years.
Yeah.
Just a crazy velocity of wealth creation.
Yeah.
And you compare that to Beretta, who's taken 499 years to get to $2.5 billion.
Well, what's their revenue? Oh, wow. 1.4 billion euros. Wow. Okay. That's... What are they doing? Stagnation? Or
it's one of the biggest I think by some measures it is the biggest gun maker in the world.
Wow. Yeah, but crazy comparison.
Yeah.
Crazy comparison.
So anyway,
wow.
Beretta.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we love to hear the stocks from you guys. So flick them through, whatever's on your watch list. Come and join us in the Facebook discussion group as well, because that's where we have plenty of conversation going on, all things ETFs and individual stocks. We love hearing from you.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.